Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be talking about some of the changes that happened to a few classes. Those are very small changes, but some of them have massive effects. We'll be talking about, for the most part, healing nerfs for a few different specs. Some of them are through traits, and one of them is a massive nerf, particularly to the burst potential of destruction warlocks in PvP. And we will talk about other updates for patch 8.2 as well in this video. So without further ado, let's just dive into some of the content that we are here to discuss. In the first bit of information, we got some changes to some of the necklace essences. One of them is with Blood of the Enemy. If you guys have been trying to get this one through Battlefield Brawler achievement, you now should be able to do it. This essence on its own has proven itself to be very popular, so if you've been farming this one and maybe you decided to delay because it just wasn't getting it, now you should be able to get Blood of the Enemy fairly easily. They also fixed another essence, Concentrated Flame Essence from your Heart of Azeroth. For whatever reason, the essence had a hard time targeting players in arenas and battlegrounds, as well as world PvP. So Blizzard Sense has fixed it, so if you're someone who is using Concentrated Flame, or if that's just your only essence available, then now it should be usable against other players. So don't worry about having to grind for another essence, feel free to use the one you are given. Okay, now let's talk about some of the nerfs that have happened recently to a few specs. Some of these nerfs are more impactful than others. For Havoc Demon Hunter, we are seeing Burning Souls traits, Absorption Shield, reduced to 25% when engaging combat with enemy players instead of 50%. Demon Hunters have an incredible amount of survivability, and for a class without any kind of self-heal, the Leech and Demonic form really already give them enough sustainability to survive a lot of enemies. That combined with powerful cooldowns as well as very short-term Blur, which is your wall in order to protect you from all damage. Whenever Demon Hunters use Consume Magic, they are already consuming a buff from an enemy. So imagine fighting against a mage and then being able to steal and consume their combustion. Sounds busted, right? For Demon Hunters, you also gain resources for it. So imagine being a rogue, having a purge, and gaining energy for it. That would be nuts. So my guess is Demon Hunters will stack in Burning Soul in order to give them a little bit more sustainability, because every comp you run into is going to have a healer, and healers are going to have buffs that could be stolen by Demon Hunter to have more sustainability. So I'm guessing Blizzard is nerfing it down a little bit. It's not going to make Demon Hunters completely out of the window, but Burning Soul Massive Absorb is going to be reduced further. Then we also are seeing a Priest Twist Magic Healing Reduction, which is very similar to Burning Soul. Twist Magic Healing reduced to 25% when engaging combat with enemy players was 50%. My guess is for this one, if you're a Disc Priest, Holy Priest, or a Shadow Priest with plenty of mana to use, you can use Dispel Magic to steal or dispel enemies' buffs over and over and over. And this is something you could do, I guess, let's say a target full of Resto Druid HOT, so let's say you get entrained by a bunch of melee, you could just start dispelling buffs. It's a way for you to instantly take away buff from an enemy, but also heal yourself. And I guess Blizzard felt that this playstyle was really too strong in terms of what you were able to do. Maybe it was used for Disc Priest because this is where a Disc Priest wouldn't stop to actually try to get a cast to heal or try to juke an enemy. Instead, they're just spamming casts and just stealing buffs from enemies the whole time. Don't really know how effective or powerful this was, but that is also getting nerfed. Must have been for some sort of a reason. Finally, the last healing nerf is going to be with Shaman's Pack Spirit stacking. The healing from Pack Spirit is reduced to 25% when engaging combat with enemy players and was 50%. It already was nerfed, but now it's nerfed even more. Blizzard doesn't want Shamans to literally sit in Ghost Wolf and heal forever. Actually, on this channel, we have showcased Shamans that run triple Pack Spirit full heal build with healer trinkets, like the Void Shield, as well as the first trinket from the first boss of BOD that gives you a massive shield that's made for Resto Druids, Resto Shamans, and such. So you would have DPS versions of Shaman, Elemental, running around with these healer trinkets, triple Pack Spirit, and literally never dying. This made me think back of Legion, where a lot of the druids would just sit in bear form and heal exponentially, and I didn't really like that playstyle all that much. So I'm kind of glad that Blizzard doesn't want to force classes to sit in a form where they can't do damage. I think you would want to approach the class design a little bit differently if that is the case, where people are having to resort to that. So hopefully Blizzard does address it. Season 3 is going to be a perfect time to do it, but the Pack Spirit playstyle was a little bit broken. It was something that Shamans kind of had to run, so hopefully Blizzard kind of gives Shamans a bit more of an opportunity looking go forward into the game to not have to sit in Ghost Wolf forever. But if you guys were stacking for a fun playstyle where you could sit in Ghost Wolf and never die, I got some bad news for you. But for the most part, I think Shamans should be out and about, zapping enemies with lightning bolts, obliterating people with massive meatballs and earth shocks instead of just sitting in Ghost Wolf. But that's just me. You guys let me know your thoughts down below. And then guys, we got a massive nerf to Destruction Warlock, straight Crashing Chaos. The straight now is going to do 33% less damage from your Chaos Bolts, but now it's going to reduce the cooldown of your Summon Infernal by 15 seconds. This is a massive nerf to Destruction Warlock output. Now Destro Warlocks still are going to play around Summon Infernal, and having that Infernal back 15 seconds faster in a PvE sense, in a dungeon or a raid scenario, might actually be not that bad. But Crashing Chaos is what allowed Warlocks in PvP to summon an Infernal and start pumping out big numbers. A lot of Warlocks would kind of cheese the Infernal too. They would summon an Infernal, and the Infernal buffs your Chaos Bolt for every Soul Shard spend, but it doesn't necessarily tell you how you need to spend those Soul Shards. So some people would summon an Infernal and drop down on Rain of Fire, with all enemies affected by Immolate. Those ticks of Immolate plus the Infernal being around build you up the Soul Shards very quickly. And with the recent changes to our essences, there is an essence where you can actually generate a lot more Soul Shards very quickly. So you can actually beef up those Chaos Bolts so fast. And Crashing Chaos, what it allowed you to do, it gave your next 8 Chaos Bolts extra beefy damage. But only because it worked for 8 Chaos Bolts. Blizzard were pretty generous with how much the ability could do. Then you take into factor the Chaos Bolts are 100% crit, so these extra damage to the Chaos Bolt is actually double if you're in PvE, and by 150% increase if you are in PvP. Then on top of it, you include all the crit buffs and modifiers. Then you include all the different buffs where you can actually use your Soul Shards with Rain of Fire instead of Chaos Bolts, so you can save up those juicy 8 charges. Min-max your Chaos Bolts so they're smashing enemies, and if you are doing raids and dungeons, you can even use Havoc in order to literally rain Havoc on more than one target, and these Chaos Bolts would obliterate enemies. Now, this nerf is primarily for PvP. Blizzard doesn't want to change this playstyle for PvE. They want for Warlocks to have some massive destructive power. But for PvP, they don't really want players to be one-shot by a Warlock. They don't want Infernal to feel like, oh, it's just a one-win button. So this is a pretty hefty nerf. Warlocks will still have the playstyle where they summon the Infernal and they kind of have to ramp up their Chaos Bolts, but now they won't have that on-demand burst that they would want. It is going to be reduced by 33, which is pretty crazy. You still should be able to one-shot people if you get the ramp going, but that takes a little bit of time and a little bit more practice. You won't just be able to summon your Infernal and half someone's health with a single Chaos Bolt. So that is a pretty big, massive nerf for Destruction Warlocks. And outside of that, there's a lot of good work happening when it comes to fixing bugs and fixing quests and fixing how items work and how items should work or shouldn't. And Blizzard for Battle of Nazjatar did reduce how much points you needed for both Alliance and Horde. Instead of the 10,000 that we needed, down to 3,000, so the event can happen a little bit faster. So there's a lot of good things happening, but those were some of the pretty big nerfs happening in the game. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts. Are you afraid that your Warlock might not be viable anymore? Are you afraid that your Shaman will just fall over and die very easily? Let me know your thoughts. What do you guys think? Thank you so much for watching this update. Hope you guys enjoyed and found it informative, and I'll see all of you in another video.